I need some type C's.
Okay.
Oh,
We are rolling.
probably move that.
Check 17776. Okay.
Just read out your whole phone number.
Oh, no.
8675309.
The best phone number.
Do you know that song?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
My old house phone number used to be 816-867-5359.
Ooh.
So really close.
Really close.
Wow.
Okay.
I wonder if you actually called that number, what would happen? Like if somebody has it somewhere. Surely somebody does, right?
Someone has it. Okay.
If you're that person, let us know. Great. Today, I'm actually really excited about today because we're focusing on you and your cute little familia, and your guys' van trips. So we've talked a little bit in other episodes about how you guys you kind of sign yourself up for being the R&D out in the field kind of tester for a lot of things. So, yeah, fun stories about that. And then like just your experience traveling with your kids. I feel like coming from you, it'll shed a lot of light for some people who maybe have younger kids like you or just 3 kids in general. And they're like, how do I do it? Jared, help.
Yeah. Yeah, our van trips are not typically normal because my wife and children are traveling with me. And so that's step 1 to just clear the air on. I 100% am the problem. If anyone has ever done a van trip with me, Austin has, so he can contest to this. It involves a lot of tearing stuff apart at gas stations, rerouting things, trying to see if something will work. It's a lot of R&D with a lot of little things, and it's just me constantly just tinkering. And so even though we've had very successful van trips, specifically my wife and I, we've also had some that are the funny stories. And so but traveling, I'm trying to think of like the stories that really like kind of like are funny / also kind of prove a point. The best one that I can start with is my wife and I, we did a 10-day trip, and we hadn't been away from work, I think, for, maybe 8 months to a year. Wow. And so I wanted to do a van trip down to the southeast. And, with that, though, we wanted to go, when we got married, we actually honeymooned at a resort in Florida. And then we've always tried to go back there every other year because it's also where we lived for 2 years as well. So it's like extremely sentimental to us. So on that trip for 10 days, we camped on the way down, we camped on the way home, but we did stay on the beach for a couple days. But the funniest part about that whole trip was, as everyone has always asked for, they always asked for a live model in an extended length van, which is one of the things that we accomplished with the new Move model. It was a reason for it because certain things weren't working. We're going to have to change design completely. If it's another one of those kind of bottled up all these things we need to do to build a Move. And but we prototyped a EL live model. And when I say prototyped, I mean we did a hydraulic bed, and the hydraulic actuators were not bolted to anything. They were actually clamped because we had to work around the wheel wells. Also, the stroke length of our actuators would not work in the locations we needed them. So again, I zip tied and bolted stuff to the face of the boxes.
Zip ties.
Oh yeah, I love zip ties. And it was one of those things where my wife Liv, she's learned to not look that close at things because you just don't know. But she's confident in what I do, so she doesn't. I think she just doesn't want to look. I think she just remove the fear. Just it's all going to be good. We've never had a catastrophic failure, and so. But on the way down, I don't know if I had it in my head that it was a do model. I'm not sure what I was thinking. But my wife gets very claustrophobic. I've talked about that with if we're traveling, it needs to be an EL, and it needs to be, the king size bed, which is just going all the way out to the sides.
Yeah, and not all the way up.
Correct. Yes.
If
Yes.
possible.
Get it down. And that's the funny part is we didn't take bikes on this trip. We had no reason not to have our live bed at the top of the power boxes. Okay. Mm-hmm. We had no reason at all to have it up, except when we were leaving, we had to drive about an hour and a half back home to drop the kids off to stay with Lovey and Poppy for while we were on our trip. And on the way up there, I wanted to make sure that the actuators would handle staying clamped and zip tied. So I put all the weight on top of the bed, and I also cranked it up so they got as much shaking as it possibly could. Yeah. So I just knew before we really hit the road for one way was 19 hours. So, and our first stop was going to be at like 10 o'clock at night. So, you want to make sure you hit that first stop really well.
Yeah.
And we're also traveling in the heat of summer. So, like, you want to make sure, like, power system works, AC works, all those things are good when you're traveling to the south. And so I made sure, so we got the Lovey puppies, and I made sure that I checked the actuators, everything's tight, everything's good, I'm feeling great, everything's feeling great. I hop out, we tell the kids bye, hop in the front seats. Reminder, I put the bed up to test. And so we drove, I forgot where we stopped at, but it was about 8 hours out. And it was like 11, maybe even close to midnight. And we just said, you know what, let's just crawl in the back. Like, let's just, like, I don't even know if we changed. I think we simply just crawled straight in bed. And halfway through the night, Lib started getting super claustrophobic. It was really humid, like crazy humid.
This is already like stressing me out.
Yeah,
just like thinking about being in that situation.
Yeah, so going through it all, and I'm just thinking, I was like, yeah, and she goes, it's just claustrophobic. So I kept like kind of like calming her down, got her comfortable again. And nothing's dawning on me. Like nothing's like registering to me like, oh, hey, like you could probably remove this problem. Well, we wake up the next morning. We've probably already been up. Start a fire outside. We're doing all this stuff. I'm getting firewood out of the back of the van. I'm doing all this. And I go, oh, I was like, hey, babe, hey, watch this. And we were testing out the powered hydraulic lift and clicked the button down. I had the bed fully extended up. And so it was all the way, for everyone who has vans, the bed was at the headliners. So it was completely all the way up, giving us about that much sleeping space. We could have had that much sleeping space. It just didn't cross my mind. And so we started off our trip with me making sure that something would handle the trip. By the way, no zip ties ever broke.
Good.
And no clamps released. We're all good. We're fine. I thought she was going to kill me. I truly thought, because
So was everything really fine?
she saw me start putting the bed down, and she's like, could it have been there the whole time? And I was like, it could have been there the whole time. I was like, I'm not going to lie to you. And she's like, why? She's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I was probably thinking about how can I make the power system do something, and so that's one of those moments with traveling where I get to thinking about certain things, so I want to try things. Mm-hmm. Another really good one is, so we usually take a trip down to Florida every year, try to, with the kids. So we kind of do, Liv and I do trips, and then we do trips with the kids. And we typically go down and then rent a house somewhere. Usually we go to like the Panhandle area, and it's a couple-day trip down just with all the littles. And this trip, I want to say Ray is our youngest, except for the one, little baby, this little one. And that's actually where we go in Florida. That was not the trip. That was, I think, this year's trip. But she was a baby in car seat. And I had an AGM van, and I thought, hey, let's try out a new power system of figuring out how to not have a onboard power system, but let's figure out how to transfer power through and charge with an EcoFlow, which is like your portable power packs. So I'm thinking if we can find a really good way to offer a very entry-level power system that's also removable, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
this should be all the proof anybody needs to know that when we try new things, like Jared is like truly trying them. It's not just like, oh, we let it run in the shop or, whatever. Like he's like, family vacation. Let's find out if it works.
That's how it works. And so we hit the road. Mind you, hooked up this power system in theory for the first time the night before we left.
That's also very Jared.
we have fridges we're taking down because we take all of our own food. Like we take all of our own. So we have a big CFX 75 freezer set, both sides. I think we actually had maybe 2 of those. So needing a lot of power. Okay, with having all the kids, all the luggage, everything newborn. We did stop at a hotel on the way down for one of the nights, and come out the next morning, and freezers are de-thawing, everything's happening. And I'm thinking, okay, like I can solve this. Like I brought my tool bag, which I did. So I get in the back and the EcoFlow is sitting there perfectly fine. It's like 80% charged. I'm thinking there's nothing wrong. I was like, why do I not have power? And so I got to looking and just amazing Amazon cables. Because sometimes when I prototype, I just use what I can get my hands on quickly. And I just quality sometimes I don't care about. It's more the concept I'm working on. And so I look at this cable, and it's an Anderson plug. And if you don't know what an Anderson plug is, it's basically a 2-prong connection that allows you to connect pretty good DC voltage to one another. It's what forklifts use. It's what a lot of those battery packs use. And I look at it, and I was like, oh, it looks really swelled. Well, power connections don't swell. So I pull it out, and sure enough, the whole thing had just welded itself together. And didn't realize it, but while we were driving down the whole time, it's trying to take charge at a 30 amp rate, and the cable is rated to 30 amps. But good old Amazon cable is rated to 30 amps. But then whenever I cut the cable open, it was probably really rated to about 5 amps.
Oh, wow. That's a little bit of a difference.
Big difference. And so melted the whole thing. And, but me being me, I pulled the cables out. I did take scrap wire, and I had 16 gauge wire for anyone who knows what size that is. I needed it bigger for 30 amps. So I just took multiple strands of 16 gauge, spooled them together, tied them together, and I ended up with this really extension cord looking connection between the EcoFlow and the power system, and then 110 plugged into a power strip into the front of the EcoFlow. Mad scientist stuff, like really at heart here. It looked awesome because there's about 15 components in this little box. I bypassed them all. I just got rid of all of them, and I just went straight to the alternator and just basically bypassed all of the stuff that I was trying to use on this trip, almost ruining all of our food on the way down. And so, note to everybody, consistency of wire really matters. Don't believe ratings unless it's an actual reputable brand. Okay. All things I knew. And that's the thing about like testing with me is like when it comes to my stuff, like when it comes to vans that I'm in, I know it well enough to know what I can get away with. Yeah. That's not a good thing.
Well, especially having your wife and kids in the car. I mean, to know that it's something you can fix even when they're there. Like if it was really something that you're like, I don't actually know how this is going to go, like you'd do it by yourself. You wouldn't be like, okay, let's go on a family vacation while I try to, figure out this thing that I'm not like fairly confident in. So
yeah. Well, the most recent one was my wife and I. We love Bentonville, Arkansas. We love the Arkansas area. So in the fall, we can probably flash some photos up, but we prototyped our new rear shower, and the day we were leaving, got the crazy idea of why don't we just put a shower pan in the entry door by the front swivel seat. got the idea. Now, this was at like 10 a.m. on a day where no one had time to do this. So basically, here's how sometimes things come to life. We had a panel that was actually made for a desk. So we had extrusion frame. That was an Alfrex panel all bent up that you would bolt in. So when you flip it over, it's a perfectly smooth top with tracks still on the top side for a desktop. And I saw it. I went and grabbed Nick and said, hey, can you make me that panel? Nick had no clue what I was asking him to do for me, FYI. I said, can you make me that panel, but I need it this deep. I need it this size. And the first question I get is what are you doing? And I said, don't worry about it. Can you cut it? And he said, I can draw it and I can cut it. It's simple. Got it. You'll have it. I said, okay, I need it in 2 hours. So
you left that detail out to begin with.
A little bit. So, but he said it was easy. Okay. But yeah, I'm getting better with that. I'm trying. But sent him off on that. I had another person. So sometimes when I R&D, I don't tell people. I go to a bunch of individuals and say, I need you to do this. I need you to make me a panel. I need you to make me extrusion frame this size. I need you to drill a hole in this floor. None of them have any clue what I'm asking them to do in the end. Because I think if I told them, all of them would be like, you are crazy. Why are you trying to do this right before you leave? And why are you going to do this to your wife? So...
And are they wrong? Debatable.
Debatable. So we pulled seat rails, pulled the floor up. It's awesome with the new move. It's easy to pop up. Put an extrusion frame in. Drop this thing in. Full tube of silicone. Just siliconed it all. And then for the hole drain, we didn't have it actually in the panel. We just said, this is probably where it can go. We just drilled a hole through the pan, through the chassis, through it all, and took a fitting that's actually not a drain fitting and just cranked it down as tight as we could, put a little silicone around it, called it done. And then proceeded to take screws and put a grid top on it. Again, we can pop up some photos, but I thought it was legit. I thought for a 1 day, 6-hour project, I thought it was legit. It leaked. It held water in the basin. But my wife and I both successfully took a shower inside that van. And then it's like, this concept makes sense.
Yeah.
So all these stories really sum up to, I wish I could R&D way more than I do. And hopefully, at some point I can. Yeah. Our kids are getting older. Our fourth is on the way. And so, there's tons of trips to be had. I want to start doing a lot more trips. Just business keeps us here. Family kind of keeps us here. But I think they're on the horizon. It's our goal to always try to do as much as we can R&D wise. Sometimes we get ourselves in positions, though, where we are confident enough in our design to know that we can send it out the door. And as I've said before, I've never sent something out the door that I wouldn't back. Yeah. I've never done that. Have I pushed it to where maybe it's still a little premature in the concept era? Absolutely. But it's just like those trips I went on. I don't put people in those positions, but there is that level of perfecting the shower pan over time, because I know I'm now taking a need for people by having it the way we have it. I'm not saying it can't be better. I also don't know if it can be better. Don't overcomplicate. Let's try to stay with the KISS method. And all these stories really sum up to, we just want to be practical. We're trying to be practical, but we also pay attention. It's like the whole bed height thing. It's like, this is why a hydraulic bed will forever stay with us. Yep. We'll never get rid of it. And it's because of the difference in my wife being successful versus not successful that night. Just like the power system. Power is a legit thing that you can't play with. And I learned that myself, trying to find a simple way to get people a power system at a budget. And it's not easy. It's too many things can go wrong when you have to start plugging and playing. We're still working on it. I'm still trying to think of how we can do it and integrate something removable. And it's successful, to be clear. I did make a successful system that you could use an EcoFlow to remove and put in. But it required attention. It required paying attention. Mm-hmm. And, and then the last one is that it's the shower idea. I just had that kind of last minute thought of, I just don't know if my wife's going to want to have to take the bed out of the way to take a shower. I was like, you know what? Full send it. Let's just cut a hole in the floor and let's just see what happens. And it's the most successful van trip we've ever been on. And so those are the type of things that Nick, he just took a trip. Shane is actually on a trip right now. Our goal is we do a week of vancation for our employees. They get their standard vacation, but then you also get a week of vancation. So you get to take a van, and the whole point is use them. Mm-hmm. Because this is where everyone starts to take ownership, and we start to realize, hey, I needed this for this. I think who's doing maybe 2 weeks from now, Pod Daddy, Isaac, he just got a van. So, and now he's all engaged. It's like, hey, what do you think about me making this? Because it's a low roof ball. And so that's kind of the whole trick behind it. But the family piece is fun. These kids, anytime I pull a van into our driveway, they run out to just crawl in it. They don't say hi to me. They want to see the van. They're obsessed with them. So they love coming to the shop. Mm-hmm. They love running around. They ask me every time, like, who's this one going to, and all these different things, and it's super cool. So
they're cute.
It's a family thing.
Love it. The van kids.
Yep.
Awesome. Where are we at on time? Was that it?
We are over.
Oh, okay.
1 minute over.
Wow.
Yep.
I didn't think it felt like that long.
Yeah.
I was enthralled in the stories.
I have more of them. Okay.
Maybe we need part 2 then.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. See ya later.
Like, subscribe.
Thrill seekers.
Comment. All the things.
Yeah.